let's take a closer look at content distribution and social marketing. Now, there's a lot to be said about these forms of internet marketing, and in fact, the bottom line is that you use this to drive more traffic to your website, and you also make up or you take advantage of the fact that the web has incredible linking opportunities and incredible content distribution opportunities. One of the beauties of the web is that you don't have to be the one distributing the content. Once it's out there and once it's good and it adds value, that content will be distributed around the internet. So let's look at a few of the key items behind content distribution. First of all, I want to kind of define what content distribution is, and it's basically the concept of your copy, and this could be written copy, video, it could be podcasts, it could be photographs and slideshows and flash. I mean, whatever it is, it's information. It's your information. This information then is distributed around the web where your target market can be found, the websites that your target market is using. And it starts with preparing this value-added copy, this web copy. And traditionally, we think of it as content or articles, but it could be really anything. It's just something that is going to add value to people that can be distributed. And as a secondary to really think about is the concept of social networking, because content is spreading fastest through social networks. And these don't necessarily have to be consumer-based networks. They can also be business-to-business networks. So your content distribution philosophy is the same. It's just the fact that the web is now allowing people to really be able to distribute information very quickly. In fact, the whole concept of websites now that you can interact with as opposed to just seeing things, you can actually interact with what you're seeing. It's called Web 2.0, or the concept of a second version of the internet, a second iteration of the web. And as I mentioned, you've got to think of content distribution beyond just the written word. Podcast, webinars, blogs that people can interact with, and of course email newsletters. All of these are forms of content distribution and should be part of your strategy. And we talked about email in quite a bit of detail in a previous video, so I'm not going to get into a lot of detail there, but definitely email is a great way to distribute content. So when we talk about this idea of getting your copy out there, what are some things to consider to do that? Well, the first thing is what are the sites, what are the websites where you want your copy listed? And the way to determine that is by asking this question: where does our target market hang out? What kind of websites is our target market visiting? And we want to make sure our content is on these websites. Now, the good news for you is that the websites whose job it is to provide content, they're usually starving for it. They need content. And so if you've got value-added content, they're going to be happy to hear from you, and they're going to post it. The content is the oxygen of the web. Without it, there is no internet. So be a good provider of content, and you'll find your articles appearing on many websites. So once you find the websites, then you want to write the articles, prepare the content, and keep in mind that all the fundamentals of internet marketing strategy deal with value-added content, not self-promotional content. When you make this list of websites that you want to target, email the editors or the editorial folks behind the site and let them know, hey, I've got a series of articles that you can see on my website, or I can email to you, and we think these articles would be appropriate for your publication, your website, and send them out in email fashion. It's really just a numbers game. You'll find that most people will jump on your content if it's value added. And also keep in mind that it's on or offline. I mean, it could certainly be a publication that is printed offline, driving people into your website. So you want to keep both of those in mind. And then in your Google Analytics, keep an eye on your refers, because people clicking through your content will show up as refers, and the content that works for you should be tracked, and then you can use that data when you contact new websites and write more content. And then keep in mind, this is an ongoing process. This isn't something you do once and then drop it. It should be a regular part of your internet marketing strategy, is to drive in this targeted traffic from content distribution. So right now, at the time of this recording, there's a lot of buzz going on about social networking and Web 2.0, and there should be. I mean, this is really an amazing thing that's happening on the internet, and businesses should be taking advantage of it. But first, I kind of want to define what this is. And basically, social networking can be defined as the concept of people interacting with each other via the internet in more sophisticated ways than just via email. And so when you think about that interaction, that's what drives this idea of a Web 2.0. And the best way to understand it, though, is to really talk about the major websites that are part of this. And it really begins with sites like Facebook, MySpace, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and others. I mean, what's happened here is really a phenomenon. I mean, right now the top web property in the world is Google. It gets the most traffic. And behind that is Yahoo, which is more of a portal and a search engine. But then followed closely behind those two websites are the social networking sites, Facebook, MySpace, YouTube, and a host of others. LinkedIn is for businesses, and Twitter is more of a personal, here's what I'm up to type of site, but these are coming on strong. But the big three really are Facebook, MySpace, and YouTube. And they have become so big that they can almost be thought of as a search engine in their own right. And you really can't think of them as websites anymore. You have to think of them as huge social gathering spots for people. And we're talking about hundreds of millions of users of these sites. So whenever you start to have that happening on the web, then you have communities that develop. And then these communities have interests. And those interests are going to need information, content, and people to provide the services and products. And that's where the social networking part comes in as far as driving traffic to your website and driving conversions. You want to have a presence on these websites, especially Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn. Those are probably the top three for marketing at this point. So as everything that we've talked about, the first thing is to develop a strategy when you look at your social networking program. The strategy should be built around your target market and what is their hot buttons, what adds value to them. And that value then should be the kind of thing that will stimulate the word of mouth, which will really rev up the marketing on social networks. Now, the other thing, too, that's important here is that you can advertise. You can do pay-per-click ads and banner ads directly on these websites. This is a new thing, and it should be tested, but it's highly focused. I mean, you can find niches and really target specific kinds of communities and users. And another option would be to create your own community. If you have a niche, let's say, in camping equipment, and you are located, let's say, in Colorado, and there's a specific area where you sell your camping equipment and people use it to camp in the Rocky Mountains. Well, you can create a community for people, and you can put information out there, and it's a great way to not only help people with what their hobbies are, what their interests are, but also promote your products and services. But the key thing is you don't do it through self-promotion. You do it through helping people have more fun camping in this case. So a little bit more about social networking. To get this done, you've got to develop an action plan, and here are some important things to look at. One is select a point person in your company that can monitor social networking and stay on top of these sites. Go into the websites and look them over. You'll see vast differences, for example, between MySpace and Facebook. They do the same thing, but you can tell right off the bat they're different marketplaces. You have to find out which one's most appropriate for you and find out how to use it and set up accounts and do that. Make sure that any of the pages you set up are coded with your content, because think of these pages as searchable, especially YouTube videos are searchable based on their content. Watch the stats and the refers coming in and the stats provided by the social networking site. And as I said, you're not there to sell or promote. You're there to draw interest and add value. And then finally, make sure you follow up, because once again, this is an ongoing thing. Whoever your point person is that's doing social networking in Web 2.0 has to do this almost on a daily or weekly basis. So content distribution, just to kind of wrap up here, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but certainly podcasts and blogs and webinars are key to getting content distributed. One of the things about podcasting is that you can easily record your podcast and easily distribute it to tens of millions of users, especially through iTunes. You can post your podcast for free on iTunes. But you also have Podcast Alley, podcast.com, Podcast Pickle, and a whole host of others where you can get your podcasts distributed. It's a great way to market your business. Same thing with blogs. We use WordPress to build our blog, and blogs are a great way to distribute content and, once again, work on them on a regular basis. Any seminars or training you do, you should try out the concept of a webinar and market it. It's a great way to get your content out there. So this has been an overview of content distribution. In our next video, we're going to look at link building programs.